Hello, everybody, and welcome to the second episode of my podcast, Old Ones. This is my podcast where I talk about everything retro gaming, hence the title Old Ones, as in old games. In today's episode, we will be talking about probably one of the most iconic video games. I wouldn't even say it's really arguable. You could say the first of the whole series should be the most iconic. Some people might argue, and I guess that would mean it would be arguable. But anyways, we are talking about Super Mario 64. Now, one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about this game is because it is so renowned from so many people since it came out to even today. What's today, August 21st, 2025? It's, I believe, the largest speedrunning community. And a lot of times that drives more viewers than normal for an old game such as this, because this game came out in 1996, and the way since this is the second episode of the podcast, it's really kind of technically the first. I'm gonna say it isn't the first, obviously, but the first one I kind of just went over myself. I talked about a lot about myself and my experiences and the stuff that I enjoy about retro video gaming. And just to give you a little look into me as a person, because you're going to be listening to this, and I just wanted to give an overview. And now, when it gets a little more structured with these episodes, I want it to start out. Since it's an old game, I'm going to go back into the past, and I'm just going to talk about when it came out, what the overall consensus when it came out, if there was any sort of either backlash, or obviously not for this game, but like for other games, or if there was like massive hype or whatever it was. I'd like to outline stuff first before we actually get into any sort of gameplay talk or anything in the game itself. And then obviously work into nowadays playing it and how it feels and how those games and this game feel these days. But yeah, so this one, obviously, Super Mario 64, came out in 1996 and then 1997 in the PAL regions, which is mostly Europe. And yeah, 1996 in Japan and North America. It came out, it was probably one of the most hyped games, definitely for the N64, but just in general. There was a demo shown off when they were showing off the N64, which I believe was called the Ultra 64. Back when it was being shown at the big events for new gaming technology and all that, and people were amazed at the demo. Was showing all these different Marios running around a globe, and it was just showing off the power of the system. I believe that was the N64. I don't think I'm mixing that up with the GameCube. But this game was the successor to probably the two most sought after titles on the SNES, the ones that people still love to this day, Super Mario World and then Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island. Those games were amazing. And sorry if I have a few sniffles here and there. I got a bit of a cold here. But those games to this day still stand the test of time. Like both those games, people talk about Yoshi's Island being a little bit it's still a super fun game, but there's one flaw, which is, I think, I'll talk about when I get to it, but it's the Baby Mario controversy, whatever. But this game had so much to live up to, and it was the first 3D platforming game for Nintendo to try to make. And I don't think it was the first 3D platforming game ever, but it was the first one that they had ventured into. And when Nintendo ventures into something, they tend to go all out, right? They want to put that Nintendo polish people talk about. They want to put the polish on the game so it feels like a Nintendo game. And really, like what Shigeru Miyamoto, who was the director of this game, and of course was kind of the creator of Mario and many other massive titles, he wanted this game, as he said in interviews and stuff, he wanted it to control well, because a lot of 3D platforming games did not do controls very well and were very clunky and were very just not fun, right? You want to be fluent. You want it to be like the 2D games where you can just pick up a controller and it feels like you run, jump on things. It's very responsive. It's very easy, fluent. There's nothing, it just feels the way it should. And to do it in 3D, obviously I think maybe one of the more iconic, I guess, or whatever you want to call it, games was Bubsy 3D, which is notoriously has really poor controls, mostly for the turning, because the camera is fixed. This was the first game to have a camera that was not fixed, that you could control the direction that it was pointing. And for people that came from 2D to 3D, that was really like hard to wrap your head around, to have a free, like, you could have it fixed, right? You could fix it, or you could zoom in, zoom out, move it around, and point it in so many different directions that, like, they had to make a character just for the camera to help people wrap their head around the controlling of the camera. It's like, oh, it's a character that's controlling the camera, and then I can control that character to control the camera. It's a very weird, if you think about it now, it's a very weird way of thinking about it, but I think personally they were so ahead of their time in that aspect that, like, they even thought of, okay, the people that are going to play this game, it's going to confuse the absolute shit out of them. the camera. So let's make it so that it's less confusing, because yes, there's a guy there that controls the camera that will just control it, and you don't have to move it, but you can move it. And obviously, it helps a lot if you do move it, but we'll talk about that in a bit. But getting into the game, it really did, when it came out, absolutely blow the socks off of everybody. All of the websites that do like rankings and give number scores and all that, like, it was almost a consensus perfect game. And I say almost because there were some that, like, dropped at a point or two, or whatever, but in most cases I believe it was like almost perfect scores around just everything. And you can see why. You can see why this game, when it came out, was such a absolute phenomenon. Like, it was just it was everywhere. Everyone that had played the game or even heard of the game or went to a friend's house and played this game was just like was blown away. They were blown away. They were, and if you were of age, obviously. Now, there are the people that maybe they were older at the time and whatever, and this game didn't captivate them as much as if you were a kid and you were the perfect age for a game like this. It felt like, it actually felt like a world. It felt like you were immersed in a world compared to what a 2D Mario could do. Now, Super Mario World did feel like a world. It did captivate you. It was a very bright and like right in your face. You could get into that world. But this one, like, wow, it was really something else. And I actually never owned this game as a kid. My parents didn't really buy us a lot of games. I had 3 or 4 Nintendo 64 games, and it was Super Mario Kart, or it was Mario Kart 64, Smash Bros, and a hockey game. It was one of the hockey games. I don't remember what number it was. I think I have it somewhere behind me. But my friend, my best friend, who's going to be my best man at my wedding, he had this game. Him and his brother had this game. And the crazy thing is, this game came out a year after I was born. I was born in 95. This game came out in 96. And they had this game, which means by the time he was probably 5, this game was already 4 years old. And that's probably about the time that he may have gotten it, maybe. It could have even been a little older, but it was still selling, and it was still like this game that was cutting edge almost. Like, obviously there were games that had started to do things a little maybe better, but took a lot from this game. And I think to this day, like, you can see the progression of this game to like how Mario Galaxy, like, you can see this game influenced everything past, and this is where it all started. And they did it, I think for a first try, you don't expect something like this as a first try. Now, I'm getting ahead of myself already because I'm getting out ahead of myself already because I just love this game, and I'm not going to hide it. I'm not going to give you a little, oh, maybe I won't love this game, but I absolutely love this game. But I want to get into, so you start up the game, right? First thing, plop the cartridge in, fire it up. It boots up to a blue screen with a whole bunch of writing in the background. Just says Super Mario, I believe. I'm just going off of memory. I don't have anything. I have a wiki in front of me, and it's the Mario wiki, but all I have is maps because I don't remember all the map names. So I just wanted to reference it just in case I needed to. But I'm from memory booting it up. Blue screen, says Super Mario behind him, I believe, a whole bunch of times. And then it's like a big old Mario head that just pops up right in front of you. And he's like spinning around, and he's like making faces and stuff. And you can take your joystick. I have my controller right here. And and you can play with his face. Like you can just like sit there and just like grab his nose, move his nose around, grab his cheeks, move them, grab his hat, pull it down, pull it up, move it. And like it was just like almost a demo for the game before you even get to play the game. And I think they were just like showing off like this game's going to be something else. Like it's going to be really cool is what it gave me almost. And sometimes me and my friends would just sit there in the menu screen and just play with his face and just make him look stupid. And it was just, that was already kind of fun. Like it was already cool, right? But then you actually boot the game up and you go into your menu screen and you've got your 4 squares and it's just little profiles, which for a platforming game at that time, platforming games didn't really have profiles. Like you didn't have multiple profiles. You just had, you start it up, you play, and you've got one saved profile, quote unquote profile. But if you wanted to start a new one, you just have to start new and you wouldn't be able to go back to that one. But this one had 4 profiles, so you could, if you are playing one and your brother's playing another one, you can do game 1, game 2, and so you don't have to play on each other's profiles, so you know. And that was a super cool idea, like a really good idea. And I mean, other games had done it before. That's not a new concept. Profiles. There's many RPGs and stuff that have that in them even before this. That's not a new concept. But for a platformer, I believe this is the first one to do it, unless I'm mistaking something, and I'm sure somebody would let me know. But I just thought that was really good because then you could almost race your brother or whoever, sister, to see how many stars you can get and who can beat the game first. And I didn't ever have, again, I didn't really have this game, so I didn't have a book, a manual or anything. So, but I'm sure it probably, if it had a manual, it probably did, because most games came with manuals. I'm sure it would tell you a lot of information, and maybe it told you there was how many stars there was and whatever. But for me, my experience playing this game, it was just such an open invitation to just like go crazy. You'd enter you'd enter the castle. So I'm already getting ahead of myself. So you pick a profile, you drop in, and you just drop into this world, and all you see is the castle. You just see the castle, and you're just like already kind of like, whoa, okay. So that's where I want to go. That's where I want to go. And you flip into the world out of a pipe, and you see the castle. So you run towards the castle, and you get stopped, and I think when you flip in out of the pipe, I think either then you get Peach's letter, or is when you run to the castles when you get Peach's letter. I don't remember, but you get a letter from Peach that says, come into the castle, I've got a cake for you, or whatever it was. And it's kind of just funny because it's like, it's inviting you into the castle. And I know, like, I already wanted to go there. That's the first thing I saw. That's where I wanted to go, right? But you get into the castle and you realize there's absolutely zero cake in that castle. You figure out that now you have to start doing stuff, and Bowser is behind this, and he's kidnapped Peach again, of course. But you run up to the castle, you go in, and then you're in the foyer of the castle, and it's not immediately obvious what to do. Like, you're not like, oh, now I need to collect all these stars. Like, and then now I need to, whatever. You kind of just enter, and you probably ran around the castle a bunch. This is probably what I did. And the only door you can actually go in is the one on the left. It's up a couple stairs, and then there's a door that has a star on it, but there's no numbers on this door. So you go in, and there's a massive painting with a bunch of bob-ombs on them. And what you're supposed to do, jump into the painting. And that is the concept for the game, basically, is you jump into these paintings, and then in these paintings there are, I think they call them courses, courses, levels, whatever you want to call them. And it's Bob-omb's Battlefield is the first one, and that's probably the most iconic. That one or Whomp's Fortress maybe, but I think Bob-omb's Battlefield has to be the most iconic in the whole game, just because it's the first one. But then you go on your merry way in this new course or level or whatever, and you have a specific when you jump into a painting, it shows you the little blue star in the middle, and they will usually have a little like a sentence underneath or just a few words that give you a small hint into what you're supposed to be doing. But if you're not really an experienced player, if this is the first time you played it, which is kind of the way I'm thinking about it right now, it's not immediately obvious. Like, I'm sure it says something about kill whatever is, well, I don't even know what his name is, King Bob-omb or something. Big Bob-omb, I think is I have it right here on my screen. It says Big Bob-omb on the summit. So it's like, okay, Big Bob-omb on the summit, which means there's probably a big Bob-omb on top of what you can see when you enter the level. There's a big old mountain. It'll kind of show you around the map just before you actually start to play. So if you are somebody who reads things when you enter a game, which was not me when I was a kid, you might get it. But if you were me, who I didn't read anything, I enter the level and it's like, okay, I just run around for a while and I eventually might figure something out. And some games that works, and some games it doesn't, unless you depending on how long you run around for. But eventually, if nothing works, you kind of get bored. But this game is so, like, you have specific things to do, but you could be doing other things. It's not okay, you have to do this, and if you don't do this, well, then you aren't going to progress. You could do the Big Bob-ombs on the summit immediately and just go in order, which is what I do now. Or you could do another star. You could have immediately, first one you could have done is collect all 8 red coins. You could do that first, which it improves, I think personally improves replayability in this game, because you don't have to do it in order. But you wouldn't know to do that if it's your first playthrough. If you were just going in the first level and you see Big Bob-omb on the summit, you aren't like, oh, I'm gonna go collect all 8 red coins. You're not, or you could release the chain chomp, but you wouldn't even know how to do that, right? You wouldn't even. I don't know if you would think to do that if it was your first playthrough, but after a million playthroughs, you'd realize, oh, I could just do that one first. Now here's the thing: you can do some of them in out of order, but some of them you cannot do out of order. Like Foot Race with Koopa the Quick in the first doesn't actually exist until you get until you unlock that star on the menu screen when you jump through the painting. So if you do Big Bomb on the summit, then it unlocks Foot Race with Koopa the Quick. So the maps or courses slightly change depending on the star that you are supposed to be doing. And not every single I don't think every single one does change, but some of them do. Some of them will change. So this one, obviously, Foot Race with Koopa the Quick, you can't do right off the bat. And then the same thing with Mario Wings to the Sky, because you don't have the right tools to do those missions yet. And that's kind of like going through the game. I can talk about that a little bit. But then, you go to Womp's Fortress, which is the second one, the second world. And you can only go there after getting X amount of stars. I don't remember how many stars are on that door, but you need to collect a certain amount of stars. And each door in the game has a different amount of stars that you need to get into that door. Now, the only thing is, they don't do that for every map, because once you get past the first Bowser fight, they don't do that anymore. They don't have doors that have specific stars. They only do that for the first in the foyer or foyer. They only do that for that, so that it's a way to make you play that first world and just get your bearings on how to play the game and some of the concepts in this game, and then you can progress. And then once you're past the first Bowser, they're like, okay, you're good enough. We don't need to bar you from getting into anything else. You can do it. Getting ahead of myself again. But as you progress through the game, you'll go from course to course: Bob-omb's Battlefield, Womp's Fortress, Jolly Roger Bay, Cool Cool Mountain. And you'll collect as many stars as you can, and every single one has its own. They're all very different. There's of course a water level, an ice level. Cool Cool Mountain's an ice level. Jolly Roger Bay is a water level. Womp's Fortress is just a kind of a regular climb to the top level. Same thing with Bob-omb's Battlefield. But there's so many concepts that they cram into those first 4 levels that give you a bearings on what the game is going to be. And if this was your first playthrough, you might think, oh, those first 4 levels, like, that's most of the game. But no. This game is, for its time, massive. Such a massive game. So once you've collected, I believe it's 10 stars out of all of those 4 worlds, plus there's a slide level that's like it's on like the top right of that. If you go up the stairs to the right, there's a slide there that you can get. I believe it's 2 stars. There's one for just finishing, and there's one for doing it at a certain speed. So that's an extra 2. I wouldn't even that is technically a course, but it's not. It's just a slide. That's all it is. It's just a slide. But once you've collected 10 stars out of all of those worlds, and there's 6 stars in each course, plus a 100 coin star in every single course. In every single actual course, there's a 100 coin star. So if you collect 100 coins, you get an extra star. So technically there's 7 actually in every course. But once you've collected 10, you can enter Bowser in the Dark World. And that is the first Bowser mission, which also has an 8 coin star. And basically you just get to the end of the course, because it's more of an obstacle course than it is compared to like the rest of the actual courses. Once you get to the end, you battle Bowser. And in this Bowser fight, you run around him, grab his tail, spin him around, and throw him at these little bombs that are on the edge of the just this big circle. He blows up, and you defeat him, and you get a key. That key will open up a big door that allows you to go to the next part of the castle, which is the basement. And the basement has another, what is it? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, another 4 courses. Including Dire Dire Docks, which is another one that is, you have to unlock the Bowser fight to do. But it starts to implement a couple other challenges, like a fire level, sand level, typical Mario things that Mario does, right? He there's always these different kinds of levels, and this game really encompasses that. And I'm not going to keep going through the whole game. This is just like your first impressions of it. But I'm going to talk about a little bit about things that I really enjoyed and gave me the like why I have so much nostalgia for this game. And it's things like Big Boo's Haunt, which is like a giant mansion that if you get X amount of stars, I don't even know. I'm not 100% sure. Oh, I think it's like 12 stars. And you unlock in the back courtyard, which you could go into before you get 12 stars. You unlock a new world, and it'll kind of tell you, oh, there's something here. If you run into that back corridor area, hallway, there's a Boo, like a ghost, that will be standing. It'll just be floating there. And it will, as you get closer, run to the backyard. And when you go into the backyard, there are a bunch of Boos. And I remember when I unlocked that for the first time, because I was such, like, we were so young at the time that this game was out, that just the game itself was like fun. We weren't good at the game. We weren't like what people are now, where they can beat the game so incredibly fast. And I can beat this game pretty fast. But just like the feeling of when you unlock this and going into that world, it was like, whoa. You go in and it's like dark, and there's this brooding like sound while you're in there, and it was just like I could insert the sound into this, but it was so contrast to like the rest of the game, which was like bright and everything was so colorful and just fun, and all the music was like upbeat and really just like fun, right? And then you go into this one and it's like dark and just like gloomy, and it gives you that like feeling of, whoa, like this game is more than just, oh, fun colors and whatever. And then all of a sudden it's like you're in this dark world and you can hear the wind blowing, and it like the concepts of this game, they did such a great job, I think, of giving you the as they would call it now, vibes that coincided with the gameplay and the worlds and all that. It was like the music in this game is fantastic. The sounds and everything is just like, it's so good. And I remember going to my friend's house and just sitting down, putting this game in, and just having so much fun passing the controller back and forth and just trying to do our best. And you'd go to like other people's houses that also had this game, and you would go into their menu screen and see how many stars they had. And if they were like, I remember the first time I had ever seen one of my friends have 100 stars. Like one of the guys that I knew, he had 100 stars, and I was just blown away. I was like, wow, I didn't even know there were that many stars. To be honest, I 100% did not even fathom that there was 100 stars. I was like, how do you even get 100 stars? Like, it was, I think we would always get to the second area with the lava and the sand and whatever. But that's, as I can remember from those days, I think that's like as far as we ever made it. We may have made it to like the third area where you go upstairs. And I think we did make it there. I think we made it to the upstairs. But the game gets progressively harder as you go, and it stops getting so obvious as to what you're doing. So once you get to the upstairs, the first level, it starts to get quite a bit harder. So the second Bowser boss is pretty much the same as honestly, the boss levels in this game, I'm not a huge fan of. I think they're pretty basic. And I mean, at the time, I guess Bowser fights were not easy to do maybe in 3D, like to make them. But I think if there's one thing that they skimped on a little bit is the Bowser fights. I think they could have done maybe something different for each Bowser fight, but every Bowser fight in this game is pretty well the same, and there's 3 of them. And you might argue that it's good. I don't really care. If you're yelling at me that you like them, and I don't know. I don't like them personally. So the second Bowser fight, you just throw them into 3 bombs instead of 1. I believe is what it is. I can't really remember. I think there are more. No, I think there's less bombs. I'm doing this all off of memory, so correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sure somebody might. But that's just where it falls short for me, personally. You might have a different opinion. But then what also makes this game change in many ways is the caps that you can unlock. So you need to go into the sky for the cap, or the wing cap, and you actually have to you have to use the wing cap, so it teaches you how to use it in the level that you unlock it in. And then the same thing with the metal cap and the vanishing cap. They teach you how to use it while you're unlocking it, which is like so good to do. Like, it's such a good game design choice to do that, because yeah, you can unlock it, but you wouldn't really know what you're doing with it until you actually need it, and then you'd figure it out eventually. But to do it in the level that you unlock, I think is just a great design choice. And I don't think there are many bad design choices in this game, other than the bosses. I think are not great. But once you've gotten enough stars in that first level, you get to the top level where those levels are some of the hardest levels, and I think the only other level that personally I think, I don't know if it's just bad design so much as just like it's really hard. And that may not be a bad design choice. That just might be, it's hard. They wanted to make it hard, whatever. But the TikTok clock, I think is what it's called. God, that's the bane of my existence. Holy shit. TikTok clock was like, oh, it's just a pain in the ass. And there are ways to like change the time, because certain levels, depending on how you jump into the painting, it would change the level completely. And unless you knew exactly what you're doing, and maybe there's like a sign that tells you or something, because there are signs in the castle that will tell you things like little hints or something. But unless you know it, you know what you're doing, you wouldn't know, oh, if I jump into TikTok clock at a certain time on the clock, it'll time will slow down, or time will go fast, or time will be regular, or it'll stop time, or I think there's maybe a backwards time. Everything will run backwards, maybe. I don't 100% remember, but that it made it so that you played it more, I think, and entered the level more, which is good design, but it made it so incredibly hard. And that's not just what made it hard. What also made it hard were jumps, some of the jumps you have to make with the controls that, and I'll get into the controls, but it made it really hard. So I don't like TikTok clock. Rainbow Ride was okay. I think as they got to the end, they wanted to make it harder and harder. And they succeeded. They succeeded, because TikTok clock and Rainbow Ride are some of the harder courses, because they are very unforgiving. They have small platforms, and they have obstacles that are trying to knock you off, and it really tests your capabilities. And I think design-wise, they probably meant to do that. It just made it incredibly difficult for a kid, and I was a kid at the time. Now, even now, TikTok clock, man, that really, it gets on my nerves. It really gets on my nerves. But yeah, you basically go through these, you collect the stars as normal, and then you get to the last Bowser fight. You fight the last Bowser, which again is another just, grab Bowser by his tail, throw him. The circle that you're on changes, though. It changes into a star once you've hit him twice, I think, on the bombs. And then the third throw you'll have to do on a star-shaped platform, so the platform's a little smaller. But still, it's the same battle, and, they're not my favorite. And then after you beat Bowser, like, that technically is the end of the game, technically. You only need 70 stars to beat the last Bowser. But again, I've already said that somebody had 100 stars. There's actually 120 in this game. 120 stars. So you only need just over half to actually beat the game, which is kind of cool. It gives it extra, like, after game to play, like, it keeps you playing even if you've beaten the game. Technically, the main story, it just gives you more to play, which again is another great design choice, and they do such a good job in this game of the designs in general. I think personally, there's just some small missteps that could have been fixed, but for the time that it came out, this game was amazing. It was amazing. for me, when I go back to play, like I've got my Nintendo 64 controller in my hand currently. It was designed really well with this controller. It controls so good while you're playing. The only thing is the N64 controller is dated, very dated. And, you know, it plays a lot better with, say, a Nintendo Switch like Pro controller or even the Joy-Cons, whatever you want to play it with. It controls a lot better with two joysticks because you can control the camera with the other joystick instead of hitting these the C buttons, the yellow buttons on the controller, which were your camera controls. It controls a lot better with a two-stick system. That's just my opinion. You might disagree. But this game, for its time, was revolutionary. And to play it now, even, it still holds up to me. The controls, you might argue, don't really hold up perfectly. The camera controls obviously are a little wonky. But it's such a replayable game, and it goes to show that this game was designed so well because people just, again, I said it like almost the beginning, like the speedrun community of this game is the biggest, I believe, speedrun community, and it's one of the most optimized and hardest games to play as a speedrunner. But people will just continue to push the speedrun because it is so replayable. And for me, I'm not a speedrunner by any means, but for me as just a retro gamer, someone who loves to play retro games, I will go back, play this game probably once a year at least, and just see what I can. The fastest I can play it in 70 stars. The fastest I can play it at 120 stars. Get every star, and now that I'm a lot more seasoned veteran of this game, I understand what I'm doing, and it's still fun. Like, I know exactly where every star is. I know what I need to be doing at all times, which ones I need to be going in. It's still fun because the movement it's not a perfect movement, and I think that almost makes it more enjoyable. It allows you to, like, there's some small errors that you can make, and they were so ahead of their time. Personally, I believe they were ahead of their time in making this game that makes it so enjoyable, so fun. And, you know, to look back at the times when you could just sit down and play this game with your friends, it captured a massive group of people that still to this day love this game. And I remember the early days of YouTube, like, if people were making videos of this game, Mario 64, like, it would have so many views just because people love this game. People absolutely love this game. And they did such a good job on this game that Mario Sunshine came out. Mario Sunshine was the second 3D Mario to come out, and it is widely known as not as good of a game as Mario 64. And I mean, I guess that might be a personal idea. I don't like Super Mario Sunshine as much as I like 64. I think Sunshine's controls are worse than this game, and this game was the first game. It sold 11 million copies. which was the best-selling Nintendo 64 game of all time. And it was like one of the first. It was right at the beginning of its lifespan. And it still was the best game on the 64. And that might be a controversial statement because Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask are regarded also as perfect games. So you might argue that. I don't know. And if you don't like platformers, you also might just not agree. Sorry, I'm going to take a sip of my coffee. But the mystery of this game and how much actual content it is in this game. When YouTube was a thing in 2006, people were still making videos of this game and saying like, this game was a 10-year-old game, by the way. And like the whole Luigi is in this game. You can find him. And there was like the statue in the back where it had like words and it was like, what it. I don't remember the exact, if I could find it in this wiki real quick, but I don't remember the exact like words that people thought it said, but it was something to do with Luigi. It was like L is real or something like that, I believe. And just like to capture people to that point of like 10 years later, so, excuse me, 10 years later, people were still like enamored by this game. It really, sorry. Oh, it really goes to show that this game has stood the test of time, and they are still releasing it on the Switch. They released it in the Mario 3D package or whatever, and I can almost guarantee you people play that game more than Sunshine. Now, of course, you get to Galaxy, and then Mario 64 kind of, I don't think lives up to Mario Galaxy. I think they perfected it with Mario Galaxy after that, and then it, Mario Odyssey is now the newest 3D Mario game, and then now we have the Switch 2, and they're probably going to release a 3D Mario on the Switch 2. I would hope, and people think it's going to be Odyssey 2. I hate that these days Nintendo has not lost its creativity, because they have not. They're still releasing quality creative games. I mean, the newest Donkey Kong game looks incredibly creative. But even the Switch 2, for me, I think is a very non-creative way of selling another console. And like, I couldn't see them doing anything other than what they've done with the Switch, where they make a handheld console that also is a actual console, a television console, whatever you want to call it. But to call it a Switch 2 and just to make it the same as the Switch, but just like some slight upgrades, it feels like it needed to just be like, it's just an upgraded Switch, and that's what it is. But I digress. This is not a Switch, but I don't think Super Mario Odyssey 2 would make any sense. I think they need to do something new. I know they made a Galaxy 2, but Galaxy 2 came out pretty quickly after the original Galaxy, because they hadn't even scratched the surface of what Galaxy could do. But to go back to the N64 and just what they gave us for this first game in its genre, and not first game in genre, first game in its line of games, and to really nail it first time, it's truly amazing. And I've already talked for almost an hour, and I'm reminiscing now of what it was just to have those small secrets. You'd see the door at the bottom of the castle that was underwater, and you were like, well, how do you even do that? You can't go through it. You can't swim through a door. And then you figure it out afterwards that you have to lower the level of water, and then that'll allow you to get into the castle from the basement, and that'll also unlock I believe that's how you unlock the invisible cap or whatever it's called. It's just small things like that. It really captured the world in this game, and I think that's why this game is regarded as one of the best games of all time. And if you disagree and you think it's not a great game, you're wrong. Sorry. Yeah, you may not just like these types of games, or at the time you were already too old and didn't respect the game, or too young and you've already played the better games before you even played this game. But when you were of age when this came out, this game was really a thing. It was special. It was special. But yeah, I think that's gonna be it for today. That's almost an hour of me rambling about Mario 64. I think an hour is probably good for an episode. I don't want to be too short. I think really short podcasts can be not as entertaining, not as fun. I think an hour is good. And that's kind of what I'm going to be hoping to reach for each episode, close to an hour. I was thinking about just doing like half an hour and just doing a quick sort of overview of games, but I think it's better to do an hour and just hear me. I might be just rambling at some points, but I to get the feel of a game across, I think you need to really get in depth, and I like to talk about the game and when it came out and all that. So yeah, that is going to be it for this episode. If you guys enjoyed, consider subscribing, or consider letting someone know, or comment, like, do all the things if you guys would like. I mean, you're not obligated to. It's just to get this off the ground. This is only the second episode, and I've got about a bazillion things I could talk about at this point, and I chose this one because I know this game like the back of my hand, and that's why I chose it. I don't even need to play it to talk about it. Some games I will have to replay just to freshen up my memory. But yeah, thanks for listening. Peace. Yeah.